Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
11 out of 10 people did not understand how I invented the precursor to the modern supercomputer. It was not I, Philip Emeagwali, that first reported my invention of the massively parallel processing supercomputer that computes faster than any vector processing supercomputer. My experimental discovery of how to parallel process an initial boundary value problem of calculus and physics, called extreme scale petroleum reservoir simulation, occurred on the 4th of July 1989. That experimental discovery of massively parallel processing was first reported by the Computer Society of the IEEE. The IEEE is the acronym for the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. The contributions to computational mathematics that arose from my experimental discovery of the parallel processing supercomputer was reported in the May 1990 issue of the SIAM News. The SIAM News is written by research mathematicians for research mathematicians. The SIAM News is the flagship publication of SIAM, the acronym for the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. However, my new mathematical knowledge that the SIAM News described as my mathematical contributions to computational mathematics was how the SIAM News understood my mathematical discovery of 9 new partial differential equations of modern calculus and understood my mathematical invention of the companion 9 new partial difference equations of extreme scale algebra that approximated my 9 new partial differential equations. What the SIAM News understood as my contributions to computational mathematics was not how I understood my invention. A discovery is like the moon that has 2 parts, the visible part and the hidden part. In 1989, the news media was reporting the concrete and the visible part of my experimental discovery of the massively parallel processing supercomputer and was ignoring the abstract and the invisible part of that discovery that occurred on the 4th of July 1989. Back in 1977, I worked in the civil engineering field of highway construction. I did so for the state of Maryland, and I helped expand portions of the federal highway between Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. 9 years later, I worked for the United States government. I worked as an engineering physicist that was responsible for updating 9 standard operating procedures. I used each standard operating procedure to safely operate each dam, and I used the procedure to safely control the water level of the reservoir that is upstream of the dam. And I used the procedure to operate the hydroelectric power plant within the dam. All the 9 dams that I worked on were located within the state of Wyoming. Wyoming is a state in the western region of the United States. Wyoming is defined by vast plains and by the Rocky Mountains. Wyoming is best known for epic cowboy and western movies and for its Yellowstone National Park. One of those 9 dams that I operated was the imposing 214 feet high Pathfinder Dam. Pathfinder was an arch dam that was a triumph of early 20th century design. Water cascaded from the mid-level outlet tunnel of the Pathfinder Dam. The Pathfinder Dam on the North Platte River of arid Wyoming is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The North Platte is a river that rises in the snow melt of the Colorado Rocky Mountains. The 9 reservoirs in the state of Wyoming that I operated stored water that served the parched farmlands of Wyoming. Glendo Dam in the state of Wyoming is an earth-filled dam that is 190 feet high. Glendo Dam has a crest length of 2,096 feet. As a practicing engineering physicist at the Glendo Dam, I visualized the total amount of water that I controlled as follows. I had 800,000 acre-feet of water stored upstream of Glendo Dam. 1 acre-foot of water covers an acre of land to a depth of 1 foot. The term SOP is the United States Bureau of Reclamation's acronym for its standard operating procedure. In my SOP for Glendo Dam, the water storage capacity and the water redistribution is divided as follows. 100,000 acre-feet for farmland irrigation, 115,000 acre-feet to control sediment deposition, 275,000 acre-feet for controlling floods and avoiding dam break, and 310,000 acre-feet for producing hydroelectric power. Those engineering experiences aside, I was primarily a research engineer, not a practicing engineer. The difference is this. The practicing engineer likes to solve problems that are considered solvable, while the research engineer attempts to solve the toughest problems that were considered unsolvable. I was in the news headlines because I experimentally discovered that the impossible to compute is in fact possible to compute. A scientist becomes famous when he or she creates new knowledge or makes a discovery or an invention that creates new wealth and that makes the world a better place. For me, Philip Emeagwali, I defined solving the toughest problems arising at the frontier of engineering knowledge as the science and technology of using my knowledge of extreme scale algebra, abstract calculus, computational physics, and the massively parallel processing supercomputer, and using that knowledge in a never before seen way, and using that knowledge to solve extreme scale initial boundary value mathematical problems, and using that knowledge that helps build better bridges across my ancestral hometown of Onitsha, Nigeria, or to help design faster airplanes, safer ships, safer nuclear power plants, and even more fuel-efficient cars. The now ubiquitous technology of the massively parallel processing supercomputer that was scorned and rejected in the 1940s through 80s is used by practicing engineers and used to increase their productivity and used to reduce their time to market. A teacher asked her students, "What is Philip Emeagwali famous for?" I answered, "The riddle of parallel processing was experimentally solved by Philip Emeagwali in Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States, and experimentally solved at 8:15 in the morning of Tuesday, the 4th of July, 1989. That was the U.S. Independence Day." That invention was my rock-solid proof and not a hunch that parallel processing makes computers faster. Doing many things at once, or supercomputing in parallel, became a surefire way to increase the speed of all modern supercomputers. My invention of the parallel processing supercomputer was my first major breakthrough in the world of science and technology. That invention was the milestone that put the name Philip Emeagwali into school reports. I experimentally discovered all the parallel processed speedup there was to discover. It's often said that the invention of the massively parallel processing supercomputer is the single most transformative technology and the biggest advance in physics since Newton Galileo. To invent a new computer or a never-before-seen internet demands genius, not luck or serendipity. I had no serendipitous invention of how to massively parallel process and how to compute across a new internet that is a new global network of millions upon millions of tightly coupled processors that are equal distances apart from each other. I visualized my small copy of the internet correctly. I visualized that never-before-seen internet a priori. My theoretical visualization enabled me to experimentally discover that the shape of the cube in the 16th dimensional hyperspace will give my new internet regular form and freedom. Each processor within my small copy of my new internet communicated via emails and along 16 mutually orthogonal directions and along as many dimensions of my imagined 16-dimensional universe. I visualized those 16 directions as mutually perpendicular and embedded within my imaginary 16-dimensional universe. Each processor within my small copy of the internet communicates in 16 directions and communicated by sending and receiving emails to and from its 16 nearest neighboring processors. My epiphany was my discovery that to execute the fastest computation, the deepest source of the massively parallel processing supercomputers' computing power was not in its 2 raised to power 16 or 64 binary thousand tightly coupled processors that actually computed. I theoretically and experimentally discovered that the deepest source of the power of the massively parallel processing supercomputer was in its 16 times 2 raised to power 16 or 1 binary million short regular email wires that did not compute. It took me 16 years of massively parallel processing and supercomputing across a new global network of processors to fully understand that my new frontier of supercomputer knowledge was a new internet de facto, not a new computer per se.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.